Hello again, friends. Carlos Scarpero here, VA mortgage specialist with Epic Lending and Military Mortgage Bootcamp. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about tax prorations. You may be wondering, what the heck is a tax proration? How does it work? Before I tell you about tax prorations, I want to give a disclaimer. These are Ohio rules, and every state does tax prorations a little bit differently. And so if you're not in Ohio, keep that in mind. The concept's the same. But they do have different methods of calculating tax prorations in every state. So keep that in mind. So what are tax prorations and how they work and why are they important? So tax prorations are a credit that the seller gives to the buyer when they buy a house for property taxes. And the reason we have tax prorations is when you're paying your property taxes, the current bill is actually last year's taxes. So right now, this is 2020, November 2020 when I'm recording this. And so the bill that's being paid right now, or actually we paid the bills that's currently being paid are actually 2019 tax bills. And then in 2021, we're paying 2020 taxes. And I know it's really confusing. Well, the taxes that are actually being accrued right now, we don't actually pay that bill until February 2021, right? Well, if somebody's selling their house, they won't be in that house in February 2021. The new buyer will be in that house. So how do we account for that? And that's accounted for with something called tax prorations. And so what a tax proration credit is where the seller hands money to the buyer and says, hey, when the taxes come due, you paid that bill for me. Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, how do we come up with that? You know, the problem with that is that each county has a little bit different cycles of when they do their taxes. And, you know, how do you account for that? How do you make that a fair system? So in Ohio, they decided to do something called short prorations and another system called long prorations. I have no idea why we have two different systems here in Ohio. We just do. And to make it even more confusing, there is no actual set guideline of when you use each one. So here in Ohio, the Board of Realtors in each city or each county has what are called conventions of what they've used before, or traditions, I should say, of the tax prorations. So here in Montgomery County, where I'm at, Montgomery County, Ohio, we typically go short proration is the convention here. And most of the surrounding counties are actually on long proration. Now, keeping that in mind, you don't have to follow the convention. It's entirely negotiable. And especially right now, that's really competitive. A lot of these long proration counties are actually using short proration. And I'll explain why in a bit. So the difference is the way it's calculated. So a tax proration is a credit, and the seller benefits more from short proration because there's so I'll go back to slightly a little bit here. So on the buying end, you want long proration because you get a bigger credit, and you don't want short proration if you can because you get less of a credit. And so reverse that on the seller side, that you want the other side, you want the shorter proration of the seller. So how do you calculate that? The way you calculate that is there's two different cycles of the year. So right now this is November, and so we're in second cycle. So the first cycle runs January to June, January 1 to June 30, January to June, and then from June to current. Sorry, let me repeat that just for clarification. So cycle 1 was January 1 to June 30. Cycle 2 runs July 1 to December 31. So right now I'm recording this in November, so it's the second cycle of the year. So if I was closing on the house right now, on a short proration, you would go July 1 to November would be that credit that goes from the seller to the buyer. That they would actually give them back at closing, either through an actual check, or usually it's just a credit off the closing cost, because the buyer's bringing money to closing already. So just a credit taken off of what they did bring to closing. But you know, if they had a lot of other credits, maybe they're doing a VA loan with zero down, closing their day like this. There was a VA loan with zero down. They had enough credits to cover all the closing costs. There was money left over, so that tax credit actually went as a check to the seller, to the buyer. So yeah, you can do it as a check, but typically it's taking off of the closing costs. Now on long proration, they add an additional 6-month period. So right now in November, if someone's buying a house right now under long proration, it would be January 1 to November. So today is November 13th, I think. So it would go in that longer period. So as you can see, as the buyer, you want the long proration. As a seller, you want the short proration. And so that's why right now, a lot of realtors are trying to negotiate short proration as a seller, because it benefits the seller to get more money at the table as a seller. So those are how tax prorations work in Ohio. Again, my name is Scarpero. I'm a mortgage specialist here in Dayton, Ohio area. I am licensed in Ohio and Kentucky. I hope this video helped you. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I have lots of videos about a lot of different topics, and I hope to see you soon.